for just $67. You can make it.
Okay, family, wholeness and balanced vibrations to everyone. We're going to take a moment here and do something that we always do around this time to make it special, and that's connect in with the entire world by sending this cosmic vibe across the nation right now. Let's do this thing. I'm Seven. I'm in Costa Rica right now. Wholeness and Balanced Vibrations Tribe. You know how this works. Go ahead and say it and pass it around and let everybody know that you're here in the house today, because I'm definitely here and I'm here to do what I need to do. As I said, I walked in the studio today, all sorts of stuff was going on, and I'm like, okay, this is going to be a good one. We are broadcasting live to the rest of the world. I decided that we would do this at least twice a month, you know, just to come in full force with the tribe and really dive into this dialogue for the entire world family. So wholeness and balanced vibrations, if you can let us know where you're at, we appreciate it.
Wholeness.
Wholeness. Wholeness. Okay. Carol Green, Michigan, Detroit.
All right, wholeness, Carol. This is Sean in Los Angeles. Send them much love, family.
Wholeness.
Wholeness, Sean. This is Michael. I'm on Earth, baby. Best of all.
Wholeness, Michael. This is Dominic and Mom. I think we're on Venus right now, but we feel.
Wholeness family, this is Pluto. I'm in San Diego right now.
Wholeness, Pluto. This is Michael. I'm in West Palm Beach, Florida.
Wholeness family, wholeness. Michael, this is Veronica, and I'm in LA, California. Wholeness family.
Wholeness, Veronica.
Jane in
This is
Birmingham.
Abby.
Wholeness, Veronica, and everyone else that jumped in with me. This is Destin Martin Diamond White in Ether, specifically in New York Ether.
Wholeness, Dustin. This is Vileda in an airplane somewhere up the West Coast. Wholeness family.
Wholeness family. This is Mama Chi. Wholeness Vileda.
Wholeness Mama G, this is Tanya calling from the UK. Wholeness and balanced vibrations world.
Wholeness Tanya, this is Lolita. Wholeness fam.
Wholeness Dudi, Lolita, Tanya. This is Nadej in Costa Rica. Much love.
Wholeness Nadej, this is Sam from Texas.
Wholeness, Sam. This is Ann in San Diego. Wholeness tribe.
Wholeness, Sam. This is Andrew in Missouri. Wholeness.
Wholeness, Andrew.
Wholeness, Andrew. This is Fee in Texas. Hi, Siglinda.
Wholeness, B. This is Sequinda. I'm Doctor in Oklahoma.
Doctor in Oklahoma, huh?
Hey, Sequinda. This is Jonathan. I am in Greenville, South Carolina. Wholeness.
Hey, Jonathan. Vanetta from Ypsilanti, Michigan. Wholeness.
Wholeness tribe. This is Slim from Nashville, Tennessee.
Tennessee in the house, man.
Oh, I have to follow up with that wholeness. Slim, this is Kawanda in Nashville.
Wholeness, Kawanda. This is Abby from Pensacola, Florida. I'm not sure if I'm doing this right, so wholeness, everybody.
You were doing it right.
Right. Always.
It was hat night. What? Why you didn't email me? What's
that?
Wholeness, Abby and family. This is Jen in Detroit, Michigan.
Wholeness, Jen. This is Jaron from Austin, Texas.
Hi, Jaren. This is Georgia and Jody from Gold Coast, Australia.
Fucking Australia, man. Wow.
Wholeness, Jody and Jojo. This is Shucks in LA in Tokyo, Japan. Say wholeness.
Hi.
Wholeness, brother Shucks. This is Johnny out here in Costa Rica. Much love, family.
Wholeness, Johnny, wholeness family. Lovely to be here. Glorine over here in Delaware. Love you all.
Wholeness. Can you hear me?
Oh, loud and clear, baby.
This is Virgil Taylor over in Kansas City, Missouri.
Missouri, man. That's a fucking man. Missouri, guys.
It's good to be here.
Wholeness, Virgil. Wholeness, family. This is Alexia, Decatur, Georgia.
Wholeness.
Once I started growing my locks, hats didn't really work out for me that much, so I had to pull out the mask. I was like, "This is my hat today," you know, ready about to just dive in deep. I was like, "Hold up, I'm seeing the cowboy hats." I was ready to say howdy. Dominic looking like Raiden. Mama looking like she about to go get some strawberries.
It's not a coincidence that so many of us have our hair covered.
Right. Go.
There we go.
Let's go. Let's go. Keep it going. Go ahead.
I caught a stoplight, so it's John Tay out of Boston. Wholeness.
Hello, John Tay.
Wholeness, Jonte, Taisha in North Carolina.
And that's what it is, tribe. Thank you so much for taking that time and that opportunity to connect into the space and to let everyone here know where you're at. You know, we're all in the heart. That's where we all get an opportunity to connect. I'm going to go ahead and set my lines really quick so we can get some clear audio happening here. I'm also going to set a spotlight. So if you want to adjust your own settings on your side, you can. I'm going to go ahead and spotlight this video just in case there's some audio back there. You know, they've been telling me that I need to calm down. That's, you know, some of the comments. They're like, "Man, you're yelling at us, man. Why are you yelling?" And I'm like, to be honest, right now, humanity, you need to be like woke for real. Like you need to wake up. So I'm not going to do that much yelling today, but I do have a lot of power coming through about this ultra human, because we're going to make this happen. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to continuously do what I do, which is keep us connected, you know, keep us sound and grounded into our reason and what we've learned over these last lifetimes, however long we've been in this existence, which is really infinity, right? So since the last infinity, I wanted to make sure that you stay encouraged. And I just want to let everybody know here, if you're tuning into this, especially on this special Friday night, this is our Tribe Vibes, and also all those out there, Facebook, YouTube, etc. Congratulations. You've really, really done something for yourself this lifetime. I really commend you in being astute in this experience and really knowing how to get yourself what you need and how not to get so distracted in all of the pleasures on the island of desires and pleasures that you found it very special and very intrinsic to practice this aesthetic, which is knowledge, wisdom, application, tribe connection, and actually continuously allowing yourself to be as expanded as you truly are. So I wanted to give thanks for that, because as you know, I go into a meditation before I jump on these lines. I really look to do the best that I can with your time, because that's your energy. That's what has the most value for sure. And I like to really also connect with the tribe. This is one of my favorite times of the week, because this drives me. It gives me the force that's necessary to go throughout the week and say, you know what, we better keep ramping up, because we're going to be bringing it. Like, I can't sit in the week and be all depressed and be, all low in energy, because the transmission just it ain't going to come through like that. So being able to be here, and this is again 11 years now, and y'all know it's been pretty much every day for 11 years. I tip my hat to the higher self, superhuman side of our consciousness, because it can do these things and more. I wanted to take a moment before we dive into this ultra human connection that we're going to have with each other tonight, just to touch and connect. And for all of those that are here this evening, it is indeed important that you're aware that we're aware. And what I mean by that is, we take this moment of time to recognize that we're all in infinity. And this is the ancestral universal symbol for infinity. And it's a recollection and a bearing witness that we don't perish, that we are eternal. And that's extremely, extremely important, because when we do take time and we take a moment with a complete spectrum to hold the space, what we receive from that is we receive everything that you prefer. All the glory, all the honors, all the riches, whatever you prefer, you have that in abundance, because you have a complete spectrum here. So I've shared my screen. Let me share my screen really briefly, just so you see there are many beings here with me in agreement that we are infinite. And when we open up this space, it gives anyone the opportunity that if you're ever feeling lonely, which is impossible because you have that air right there. And if you're ever feeling downtrodden, you're ever feeling like you don't have value, remember this space and tap into this space. This is the fresh one, because there are many of these, and at any point in time, they can be visited. So with that being said and done, we can begin our process of the connection that we need to really understand with who we are, so that way we can get this activation underway. Because one of the things that I've seen that sparked a great deal of the essence that I'm bringing in tonight, and the awareness and the knowledge that I'm bringing in tonight, is because I feel that the world, it has too many villains. Actually, at this point, it even has too many supervillains. And, you may think that that's like fictitious, right? Because, be watching these cartoons and stuff like that, and we see these villains, and then we see these heroes, and, and it plays out so many times. And it seems so fictitious. Even when I mentioned this, someone even said to me, they said, that kind of sounds like fictitious. And I said, but actually in every real story that you see where there's a hero and a villain, and they're iconizing, especially the villain, if you look at the villain's story, oftentimes the villain's story is very akin to maybe even a larger percent of the world populace than we think. And I made an example of the Joker. And I had to explain this to a person who doesn't watch this kind of stuff. So, I had to bring him in. So I was like, to understand, this Joker, he's growing up, and, all he has is his mother. And his mother is a little crazy, and she's old, but he's got to take care of her. He's also kind of like a mama's boy, because he's a little off. There's certain things going on in there. And I believe the story goes, the mother needs to, be put out of her misery because she's in pain, but he loves her so much, so him even doing that drives him overboard into insanity. And then from there, he tries to find the greatest hero, in this case, Batman, to destroy his life and in him, technically, for not being there when he really needed him. And so there's a deep psychological thing playing out in these hero villain movies, all the way from the Disney stuff when they start that. And in life, this plays out again. And we start seeing, like, with father figures and mother figures and, you know, the energies that we need around us, you know, how they may be missing. And because I know that this is all being done by design, that there's a program running in the consciousness of those who choose not to delete it, then I see this program starting to play out, and I see villains rising up, and I see no real schools for heroes these days. So I said, you know what, tonight is going to be the night that we let everyone know that's dialing in, that has always in their hearts known that, man, I'm here to do something special. I'm here to change everything. And just need some sincere direction on how to do that and why to do that a certain way. I'm here for you. Because there's nothing like going through something and not having anybody there to help you. And many of us have been through that. In life, man, it can introduce itself quite a few times to many of us. And it does something to us, especially when we're at a state of our own weakness and feeling powerless to the things that are going on around us and whether we can control those things or not. But I'm here to say together, because, you know, in the first pages of communism, it talks about dividing the people first amongst, you know, petty things, simple quarrels. And then once doing that, then you can start convincing people to give up their freedoms. And I see that going on all around me, because who you are, the rights to you, you know, that's your soul. And to have to give that to somebody else, to have to accept a program, to have to be a clone, you know, to have to show up a certain kind of way and act a certain way for everybody to accept you. And then for that to start just getting narrower and narrower and narrower until you find that, you know, to become even accepted by society, you must become some conflicted specimen. You know, that's when the time is that we got to rise up, because you still need to know that, you know, regardless of whose fault we think this is, we're giving it power, even if it's convincing us to do it. You know, even if, you know, we don't know any better, whatever the case, it's still us that's giving it power. So because of that, it means that it's also us that can choose not to give it power. And I always say, give the power to yourself. Now we're going to talk about, what is that? Like, what kind of power are you giving to yourself? How do you do it? And why are you doing it? Because there needs to be purpose. If I want to go be a bagger at Vons or Ralph's or Kroger, depending upon where you live at, even though they're all owned by the same people, you know, shoot, that, you know, they hire me right on the spot. But if I want to go be the president, well, there's going to be something that comes with that, right? So every single thing you do is going to need a certain level of energy from you. So as I mentioned earlier, because, you know, I want to slow down. I'm not going to, you know, get intense on this early. But when I say the world has too many supervillains, because villains, you know, villains are running through all the time. You know, even sometimes what defines a villain just becomes, you know, it could be anything, right? The person could be trying to get something for their family members and be stealing and robbing. So that's like a, you know, that's a villain to me, because still, you know, stealing and robbing is a certain kind of energy. So those are, to me, the villains. But when you're talking about a supervillain is when hundreds of thousands, if not millions of souls are on the line when this being decides to make a decision or do something, in this case, distorted towards humanity. Look at this, you know, this guy, Fauci or whatever, you know, and just watching even from the time when he was with Mother Teresa and all of the stuff that was going on in the nucleus of this person, to find him even at the top in the world today, telling people what they need to do. This is very interesting, seeing the person's track record, even the invention of certain diseases such as HIV and the spread of this disease across the world and how many people it already started doing the population control on. It's interesting. People are waiting on the Great Reset because they heard about it from the World Economic Forum. They're like, oh yeah, the reset's coming. The reset's happening now. It's been going on. Humanity has been under attack. It's just most of the time, people don't have a platform of 100,000 people even to talk to about that. See, because that's what happened to us early in life. We didn't have a megaphone to tell everybody what kind of traumas we were experiencing, even in our household, because of low wages and lack of education. Who was going to listen to that? So when the world goes through something, it often goes to that muzzled and muffled because they're deplatformed. They don't have a place to speak where people would even care. Sometimes I put myself into a person's body inside of Iran before the shit popped, or in Iraq before it popped. The places they even look like most European countries, even as far as the development is concerned. We'd be thinking they just riding around the desert on camels. They'd be having a full infrastructure, and then it pops off, and all those people are engrossed in it. And it's like, sometimes because we think we're better than them, because we're on the winning team, because our God is a bigger God, and there's like a million becauses, we don't even really think about, well, shoot, what if I was over there? Wouldn't I want some superhero to come and save me or something? Because, that'd be like a last ditch effort. Wouldn't I want someone that has power to speak up for me when I don't have a voice? So the next one right now is I told everybody about Elon and, just his antics, him and Peter. And now, to watch the world's only opportunity right now for a free financial market be manipulated by one man. To see Elon tell all these young kids, go invest in Dogecoin, and for them to believe so much in him as a person, Elon, my hero. And then for him to crash the coin on them. That said, like, those things, they don't go by my eyes and my view, because it's like, you got all these people, they believe in you. You could easily take this thing to the whole next level, but instead you would rather take everything they have. And I looked at that being, that's why I said, these are super villains, because they have every pleasure in the physical world at their beckoning call. They can't feel good anymore with that. They feel good when another person wakes up in the morning and thinks bad about them, because they know that in that way they have some kind of control over them. And so to me, this is very serious. This is very, I can't sit back and just be like, yeah, and we all make it up in our minds and blah, blah, blah. Like, I'm a real player in the game. Like, I've seen real men before, your great grandfather, this is how it's got to be done when somebody needs to make the commitments. Now, the boys can play, but we can't all play. Hopefully we switch out sometime or whatever, like, go ahead and get some R&R. But if everybody doesn't want to stand watch, that's how we got invaded. And when I'm saying that, I'm saying also as a personal being, if you're not standing watch on your consciousness, as we've talked about on the portals, you could get invaded. And so now we have to come in deep in the invasion and win the war that's going on within. And you're going to need powers to do that. Powers are not fake. And so I want to explain very briefly, though, why certain demographics gravitate towards being the villain now. So I have to start off in my own community, where if you look at the level of opportunity that's being presented, it's almost like a 1 in a million opportunity to be a basketball player, to be an NFL player, to be a rapper, not to mention to be successful. Like all of those, you know, you could be some of those is still really difficult, but then to be a successful one. Now this is entirely different. It has a different level of difficulty to it. It's like what I was saying before. Now you want to be the president, if you may. And so I realized that when the way of escaping this conflict or this actually let's get into it. Let's get into it. I was looking at something. I'm like, yo, what's up? What? There's a stain on my. Hold on, real quick. You know what I mean? It was on my mind. I was like, wait a minute, I came in here clean today. What is that? A spot up there? I'm basically just saying, loosen it up a little bit. So if you look at the average young male in the house today, he's thinking, well, shoot, how can I even be relevant? Like I'm going through like this huge crisis. I got all of these steroids in me from this food. You know, I got this challenges competition. I'm looking up on this Instagram. You know, I see a lot of thotties moving around. They on OnlyFans. I need to get some bread for that. And man, there's nothing going on except for, and then what's going on in his mind is this music, right? You know how you hear a song, you can't get the song out of your mind. Remember, it used to happen all the time back in the 90s and the 80s, you know, for those of y'all that this old, you get a song, the song's in your mind. So imagine, you know, what Young and Ace can do to your mind if you know every single thing that he's saying in a song and you just have that playing back over and over again in your head like a program. And then when you're asking yourself, what can I do to get ahead? You hear the words of a villain. Now I'm gonna flip this though, because you could go, you know, you could take a trip out to the suburbs somewhere. You could dive in deep on one of these zombie games, Fallout, you know, something like that. You know what I mean? The last ones, they got crazy name, Dark and Alone. And do you think that the hero in the story that's grinding everybody with a sledgehammer or a chainsaw or whatever becomes a hero in their mind? No, that's a perfect trigger to a villain. This person is being trained over and over again to enjoy brutalizing something. Mortal Kombat 11. They just slow down the torture. So now, of course, if you try to add anything on the list where the person's going to come out inspired, like that kid, like he's going to pay attention to that or she's going to pay attention to that. That's why we have a lot of villains. And that's why the world is got super villains now. But it's only right, though. I would say, actually, it's only balanced that we will have superheroes too, right? Because, you know, we've been just breaking through code. So you obviously know that Heru is also Thoth, is also another savior, or Hermes, or the sun, right? So we know then that the word heroes comes from Heru. We know that a Heru is basically a person who has activated their chakras. And we're going to explain that very clear tonight. But we get how, well, shoot, there would be no heroes if no one knew how to turn on these within, right? How to light the eternal fires within. That knowledge is missing. So lots of knowledge on how to be a villain intrinsically. It's all on Netflix. Deep movies about, you know, how to pull off an Ocean 12 in your dream world, though, because most of people won't try to do any of this inside the real world. They have a police for that, a force to prevent that, with silver stars and gold stars and everything that is necessary to make sure that that person doesn't try to, or the per capita, not too many of those beings try to actually live that out in real life. But they live it out in the most important place, your life, which is your internal world, whether it's your mind or whether it's your dream. Do you understand? Like, so if you're living out this dream of this zombie killer, because your dream is your most sacred space, it's your most useful space. If you could learn how to operate your dream, you wouldn't be pissed off at nobody around you. You wouldn't even care. You've been just trying to get back into the dream state again, because everything you want, all your stuff is set up over there. You're projecting light. You want a mansion with the perfect arc, with the sacred cut, with the garden, with the sacred fruits and all of this kind of stuff. Boom. If your consciousness is really, really wired tight and doesn't have too many external things that is losing all of its life force on, breathing life into those kind of projections is more than possible. Being able to manifest from your feeling to allow your feeling to create what you're going to see next. And then to be in love with that. And then that all be just all contained within inside your universe. We're looking at this outer verse all the time. And this universe inside, this is the one that, you know, this is the one we should be looking at, because this is the one we can literally say as a lucid dreamer, no joke, you can get in there, do what you want. That should be motivation. That should have you, like, every time you experience some type of trauma, you're like, man, let me get my stuff together about my lucid dreaming, because there's reasons why you can't. The cloudiness of the mind, you know, being distracted by other people, angry all the time, losing life force, not paying attention to your sleep and setting up your sleep like you're about to take off rather than you just diving into it and crashing into sleep. He crashed. I got to crash, man. I'm super tired, you know, going in like that, eating all late. But then when you come into when you come into this, and then you're so unsatisfied with this, you know, you want, I don't know, if it's a man, I want this woman to do this, or I need to find this girl. If it's a woman, I need to find this man. Men need to do this for me. And it's like, all of that's doing is keeping you from turning on your projector completely. And if you could realize the reward that you already have within, you would just stay focused on that. It's like, yo, I got to unlock my inner world. And once I get that unlocked, then everything else, because I already tried to do everything else and it didn't work. I tried to count on people and they wasn't there. I tried to, you know, we made love and we made children and now they're gone. And now this is where, it's like, whoa, time out inside. But you got to put the effort in. You got to see how important it really is. So let's keep going. So I wanted to read this before we jump in today, just so you understand how deep this gets. I'm reading from the Bhagavad Gita, the first volume. And, you know, we've been going through this book from time to time. It's thick, right? And this is only the first volume. Metaphysically, for those who, you know, he's talking to metaphysical online and stuff, and they, you know, I feel the divine enlightenment of the connection that we're all sharing across the grid into the spaces in which are seen and unseen by the elders from the Sacred Heart, and the arrow of enlightenment and the continuous perfection of illicit membership into a sacred cosmic order of, and they be going through all of that. They're basically repeating the same words over and over again. In here, though, you get the real metaphysical, the extra words that you're not using to give you the insights that are necessary for you to understand what exactly is going on in your consciousness and what is going on in this world. And I wanted to just read this. Okay, here it is. So this is page 484. And I'm just reading from here because I wanted to bring up something. It says, many devotees are not satisfied with the thought of a vast infinite, but need to conceive God through some tangible form. In his infinite mercy, the invisible God materializes before the true devotee in the desired visible form. As invisible water vapor is transferred by the chill of frost into ice, so by the transmuting power of devotion, the invisible God in his cosmic light can be frozen into the objectivity that satisfies the yearning seeker. Nevertheless, spirit is only one. His multifaceted divine aspects informed as devas are merely temporary personifications of attributes and powers. And what I'm saying here by this is just the awareness that you're going to have for a while beings who want to step down the infinite power into something that is more like a human for them, or something that they can relate to first. And there were men and women who did that. They were able to accomplish that. They were able to perceive what this God would be like, just like a person could start thinking they want to see Jesus, right? And then they go into some kind of experience, especially if they're in some type of trauma, and they actually see Jesus like it's real to them. And he talks to them and he tells them that he is their own or something. You see what I mean? But they manifest this. And beyond that, what this is saying is, because as the work continues to go on, it explains that every time a devoted being is capable of manifesting something, because this is this mainframe, we call it a mainframe or matrix, once that person is able to pull in that entire code of whatever they think the God is, or a higher power is, when they manifest it into this world, it actually becomes static in the space. It actually becomes there. Like the program is there and accessible by anybody else who does it. So first it only takes someone who really believes in it. Now think about this. Like, this means that, there are many people who, or in many cases, we invented things or we created things that didn't exist, and we thought them up. And then, like an inventor, if you think about something so much, eventually you could bring it out into the physical world, and then everybody can even use it. But what it's talking about here specifically spiritually, is there are people who practice deep aesthetics to want to see God. There was no distractions. Then they started visualizing and philosophizing within their own consciousness about what God would really be. And then through a series of continuous devotion, it manifests. And when it manifests, it's like it writes a code inside of our matrix, or inside of our DNA mainframe, that others are able to access. See, that's actually the birth of a God, what we like to call eidolons. That is their true existence. Someone else, one of your ancestors at a certain point in time, had enough devotion to bring in another code. And then that code just sits there. And anyone who knows how to tap into that code by obviously eliciting some type of resonance to that devotion key would be able to unlock that. Right. So I just wanted to make it very clear about when we start talking about at all that there's other energies moving around, and there's things that can be harnessed, and there's potentials. We have to understand where that would come from anyway. It can't just be, it's just there. That at times, especially in these days, is not the greatest foundation for being success. Just trust. Now, later on, of course, that's in the unlearned part. You just learn to trust. Like, you see so much in synchronicity, you stop asking anymore. You stop wondering if you're going to be okay and all that kind of stuff. It's like the synchronicities be so crazy. You just like, definitely, if there's some spiritual stuff, it's going on with me. And it's working, and I'm progressing. I'm seeing where I'm gaining knowledge and wisdom. I'm seeing where I have to learn. I'm seeing that, it's going to take as long as I take, but I'm alive with this action. So I just keep going with what I'm doing and don't stop what I'm doing. Right. So let me see if I need to finish reading. It says certain devotees offer as oblations in the fire of inner control their powers of hearing and other senses. Others offer as sacrifice in the fire of the senses, sound and other sense objects. Okay. And what this is about when you get out of this external, I'm going to give God X. And this could be flowers. This could be tithes. This could be ghee. This could be offerings. What one will eventually get to is realizing the greatest thing that you can give to unlock your power is yourself. And it's basically throwing yourself into it. This is the perfect term. When they say throw yourself into it. So it's like you're throwing yourself, your old self, the programmed self, into the fire of your new self. So when people started practicing that externally, they started taking things like ghee and pouring it into the fire. Because inside of us, our fat is actually the combustive component, i.e. burning fat. So that fat is actually like, you take a piece of fat or a piece of grease and you throw it on a fire, it has some combustion in it, right? So all the fat lodged in your body is actually power or energy that has not been combusted. And this is why they're talking about yoga, not just the only principles of the physical yoga, but it is important to realize that what the physical yoga is doing is it's burning up the fat. And what you're supposed to be doing is you're supposed to have your mind clear enough to keep basically honoring yourself with the fat that you're burning off during these, during this practice, right? And in this practice, it talks about how, and me and Andrew, he actually was talking about this today, and I thought it was really enlightening. So I'll share it with you. He was reading that. So when you first start doing the yoga, now working out is different. Going to the gym is different because you have a lot of weights there. And so you can keep getting harder and harder. You can really reach where you can't get anywhere beyond a certain point in the gym because there's 1,000 pounds there. But the real workout is actually with your own body because you're supposed to be able to maneuver your own body really without getting tired. So let's say, for instance, if you're practicing the yoga, to be able to go through a complete set without that's, intermediate to advanced set without being all tired and feeling like you're in an aerobic workout would mean that you have transmuted all your karmas. That's what yoga is really for. The pain that you feel in your body when you're doing the yoga and the tiredness that you feel are your karmas. These are the things that you've done to your body in this recent history of yours that kind of need to be undone if you wanted the most optimum vehicle. And that's what we're talking about here, just having the most optimal vehicle, ultra human. And this is why, like Paramahamsa Yogananda and a few others are on record that when they died stretched out. Like instead of most people, their hands go like this when they die like this, stretched out, stretching it, stretching it out, like releasing completely. Not like, because as the body is getting older and it starts to hurt and you're in pain, those are the things that should be worked out in the yoga. Now, remember, there's different types of yoga. But the most clearest aspect of understanding what I'm saying is to understand that you honor up the fat or the fire, the basically the fuel of yourself into yourself. So you sacrifice yourself to yourself. Like, I need to get to another level. We're really going to have to do this time. This is not a game anymore. I need to get back inside. I need to get on the throne ASAP. And these are the methods. These masters have already gone through this. It's like you got folks, the only thing they could do is repeat this. And then, of course, this is the map, and the map is not the terrain. So this means that there is a necessity for having beings around you that are either also going through the process or been through a part of the process before. So I want you to think about this. If you have something to write with, you need to write this down. See, we've gotten fascinated with this as above, so below thing. It just pops off of people's mouth these days. Well, yeah, just as above, so below. And yes, for sure, as above, so below. However, for someone who does not have an astral eye, their interpretation of as above when seeing something going on as below will be completely off because they'll be thinking that what they see going on below means something else on high. But because they never been on high, they may not be able to exactly connect the dots about when you're talking about on high, you're talking about the most estranged key fundamentals to creation. You're not talking about the same rudimentary dramas playing back out on the physical plane on high. Because the difference between on high and here is there's no distortion. It's only clarity up there. There's no filters like what we're going through right now. We're filtering through bodies. We're filtering through elements. We're filtering through all these different things. And we're doing that with the power. And then the power is manifested as you see it here. But here's a quick wake up call to that. As above, so below doesn't mean what most people think it means. Now, in the astral plane, because that's one of our as aboves, you may call it the dream world. I can fly. I'm sure somebody here has flown before in your dream. So I'm not the only human being that has gone into the astral plane and flew. However, am I going to fly here? Am I going to jump off my house and just take all off to the beach? No. Now, in the astral plane, I've been killed before, but here I'm alive. I've actually been killed a couple times in the astral plane. I've jumped off some stuff and thought I'd been shot. You know, you feel the pain and everything, right? And then you wake up, right? But over here, if you get shot once, over there, though, you get a shot. So this is the issue, that people think that that's the fake world, but that's the real world. That's how things really are. You cannot die. You fly. But here in the fake world, you can't. And the contamination is, learn from this. When you let this existence here convince your conscious mind, your subconscious mind, and your dream mind, and your astral, and your spirit, and your soul, that it can die, because what goes on inside of you is the same thing that goes on out here, because as above, so below. Do I need to reiterate that to you one more time? I think I need to reiterate that, because this could be the meaning of one's entire existence into something going on way beyond this existence versus being trapped here infinitely. It's so important to realize that you can do things. There's a limitation here. There's a place that you have that's adjacent to this where you don't die and that you can fly. Here, you can die and you can't fly. What does that tell you? That there are many things that are not a direct connection to this next world. So don't fool yourself into believing, and this is very important, don't fool yourself into believing that the things that matter here, all the things that matter here, matter there. If you understand what I'm saying, it'll remove a tremendous weight off of you. Folks be thinking the stuff that they're doing here is really affecting what's going on the bigger thing. They think, oh man, I shouldn't have done that 10 years ago. They feeling all that weight. Oh, I'm the worst person. It's like, over there, you don't die. Here's another thing, like there's no four elements. That's the whole thing. The four elements create the physical world. Any mage knows this. So once we leave the physical world, there's no fire, there's no earth, there's no air, there's no water. So you don't get thirsty, you don't run out of air, you don't need a ground to stand on. None of that is going on because you've just gone away from the four elements. So the first thing that goes is air, because air is the most powerful element on the planet. Like there's a reason why air is in a certain position. In the planet, this thing is a sliding scale of power. Some people think, oh, everything on the earth is the same. And come on already. This is a sliding scale. There's a creation of another creation to sustain or destroy another creation. And it's a sliding scale of power all the way to an apex, right? All the way to the apex predator. So because of that, we have to see very clearly, this is what maturity is. It's like, yo, you need to get really mature and start realizing that in the other space, that's why, as I said, the first thing that happens to people when they're making the crossover, if their brain is still turned on, especially the left brain, is they start feeling like they can't breathe. That air is being sucked. It almost feels like a vacuum. And this is because you're basically awake for the transfer. The transfer generally goes on every night for every person. Some catch themselves right in the transfer sometime when you're just about to fall asleep and you, oh man, I saw some stuff, and then you forget it really fast. But if you're awake for that whole process, you feel this, and it just feels like, because you don't need to breathe there. There's no air. But if you're over there like, oh my goodness, you're in the dream world now getting burned. I feel heat. Oh, you punched me. Oh, you're feeling pain. This means that you've taken what's in this world into that world, and this is contaminating that world. You get it? So the whole thing going on here is about getting people to do things that contaminate their dream world. So then when they die, they go right back into basically this world again. And they keep doing that over and over and over again. Then they start dreaming that they're in pain, they're hurting, they start having nightmares. But remember, that's your only space. That's why you got to get back in there. And then once you do that, and we'll bring the last part of today's conversation is to remember that the stuff that I'm talking about right now, let me check my audio here. The stuff that I'm talking about right now, and what we're going to talk about here in a minute, especially in relation to the aesthetic and things that you need to do for yourself to get yourself in the right condition. That's the preliminaries. That is not the parts that earn you reaching your higher self. When that whole process is about to happen, it will happen just like that in your dream. It's not, oh, I'm trying to eat all these vegetables so I eventually see my higher self. That's just that's the maintenance. That's the protocols. That's the aesthetic of your daily life. That has nothing to do with whether you reach your higher self. Your higher self is about you getting out of the program finally. Really, because when you keep saying you're going to be done with it and you're changed and you haven't really done any of that, you're not lying to your higher self. So it knows when you make the transformation, and when you make the transformation, it goes right to you in your dream, right into your heart through an energy field. And then from that day, when you wake up, things start changing. Things are different. I'm saying this because I don't want it to feel like to anyone that the things that I'm describing that you should do for yourself for the natural love of life are necessarily the only things that allow you to be able to get into your higher state of consciousness. Do you understand what I'm saying? Because some people, they're like, well, you got to do this and you got to do that and you got to do this. And then you start listening to everybody. You're in a straitjacket. You can't eat. You're like an alien. You can't go nowhere. You can't talk to nobody. You can't listen to nothing. You can't. And that thing will start and it'll just be like, you'll be in a straitjacket, and definitely you won't be activating higher self. Higher self don't want to be a part of that. You're going to send higher self into a straitjacket. If he came through here or she came through here, it came through here and was like, okay, let me live in this existence. Let me come through this existence and do something incredible. And you're sitting in there, can't even leave the house. Right? So it's about maintaining and growing who you are as a being, staying on the move, making sure that you're ready for the next amazing thing that's going to happen to you. And then we also explained about energy, how energy, you need to load it sometime for sure. Know when to pull back, how to, just get rid of a lot of distractions and things around you, how to dial in and connect with yourself. But then know, okay, you've been dialed in and connected with yourself for 3 years now. Looks like you got cabin fever. You developed another issue because now you don't want to go out and assist anybody anymore. Now you feel like everybody's going to get your white clothes dirty. They're going to infect you. You see what I mean? And so all of these things, it requires that we have that movement and have that ambidexterity, if you may, about being able to oscillate between those different parts of your consciousness. So I want to talk about, because we're going to turn this into a dialogue. I'm going to ask a couple questions here from a few of the tribe members that are here. So this ultra-human aspect of things is really centered around that I clearly went through the procedure, and just to authenticate that the procedure does exist and that one could remain stable and that one could benefit from it. So I'm living proof that taking yourself through the process of activating you, connecting with higher self, becoming your higher self is possible. It does work. But I also have to step back for a moment and say, well, what were the sequences, though, of making that happen. If you could template that for me, especially if you can get it under 5 things, could you say that if one does these specific things, that they can reach that stage? Because that's what we want, to be honest. I don't want a person to be trying to sell me books. You know, I'm like, it's like Fast and the Furious. It's like the 10th book. And we still haven't it's like, what are we doing here? I would want this thing to be down into the top 5. Can that happen? The top 5 things that I could do in my life, or changes that I need to make, or the order of things so that I know what kind of part or what stage I'm on? And I would say absolutely. The first stage I'm calling the event. It's very interesting, that word too, because the event, you know, is even like almost like in itself the word when they say like the day the extraterrestrials arrive, they call that the event, right? It's like the real one of all the events. And I realized that when you're going to make this massive transformation in your life, if you haven't began that process yet, something needs to happen that completely takes the frequency from where it is into something that it's not necessarily familiar with. Because the complacency of our everyday life, I call it like the life where everything is you order stuff. You know what I mean? You get stuff on the shelf prepared already. It's always catered to you. So you can get into complacency that we've never even seen in human history before. We at least used to go out and do, I don't know, maybe milk something, maybe pick some grain, maybe do something. Nowadays, we don't got to do that either. So imagine a level of complacency the being is actually in. So the frequency is like a rock. So something has to happen, AKA the event, to change that frequency from being like a rock to letting it experience for a moment what it's like to be the air. Okay. Now, we know then that what would basically be the things that don't allow the event to take place, right? Because now that we know this is the first step, you got to have the event. It makes perfect sense. If you're stuck in a frequency, even if you oscillate around that same scale, nothing's going to feel like you really changed. You could go get another apartment uptown. It just means that you just went to the next tone. You didn't go to another octave. You can get a better job. You could get another car. You can even probably get someone that you care about in your life. So there's many things that can be added to your life, but it's still too close to the same frequency range that you've always been in. You need an event. And I've explained my event, and I'm sure there are many on this line that have actually had an event, which we'll ask here in just a moment. But we want to talk about, so what prevents the event? Because some are saying, well, shoot, I haven't had an event yet. And why haven't I had an event yet? And we talked about the first one, which is just all complacency. You don't go nowhere. You ain't even left your house. You know, the furthest you've gone is the border of your town. So there's a extreme complacency with and even a fear to go somewhere else or to do something else. So that's always like the telltale signature is like, if you cannot be alone, that's how I even got this check the other day. I drove off and I spent some time by myself, and I realized it's kind of been a moment since I spent some time with myself, just directly, just me. And I realized how, you could develop somewhat of a bad habit if you don't do that. Because when you're by yourself, this is what you need to be comfortable with the most. And I was given a little hint of my consciousness to maybe you should, start learning how to dive, like, deep sea diving. Right. And then I thought about the word, right. Just to die, like learning how to die, you just go into this abyss, you're just floating. You see how the air component comes in right away. It's like, well, you only have a limited supply of air because there's no air down here. And you need to get used to being alone, because generally when you pass on, you're going to first be by yourself. You need to sort things out. And most importantly, if you've already been doing that because you've already been going into that space, you just call up the same world that you were calling up the whole time. So death doesn't have to be like something that's like, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? It's like, what's going to happen is the same thing when I go to sleep, and I'm going to go into the same place that I already built, and I already know how to get to that space. But remember, that comes later. That's what I was saying about, like, if you need encouragement, these are the kind of things that, why would I want to do this? To get control of your dream world, duh. Like, you need control of your dream world. Don't play around with these folks and these realities and these projections. Just get that for yourself. Trust me, it'll be the most valuable thing to you in infinity. Do not stop until you get to that. Well, how do I get to it? Well, if you're complacent, you need an event, because you need to shake the frequency. The body thinks you're playing. You got to think about sometimes the components that you exist in as just separate beings until you get them back under control. And what you've done is you've let your camel run off, as they would say. It's like an ode to a person who lets their camel run off in the desert. So it's like what they're saying cryptically is that if your body ends up starting to like get caught up into the world, doesn't want to live anymore, you don't have any control of it, it can, it becomes like a prison. So you need to shock that body. Like, listen, let me show you, I'm really in control here. Let's go up a couple octaves and see what things are like. Now, we also have another issue that could occur. And this is why there is a preliminary before an event. You want to get your consciousness and your body prepared as much as possible. But if you really think about it, what you're preparing for is the ability to not go what I just call mego. Not go mego, which is megalomania. It's a real thing. Especially for a being who is still in need of love, acceptance, things that when we get psychologically impaired, when certain things happen to us when we're children or through life, and we just haven't gotten through that yet. And then imagine when you feel like all of a sudden you have a lot of power, the first thing is that power tries to channel itself through those weaknesses. It actually starts leaking out those weaknesses. Now you're powerful. Now you can, basically show the whole world. You can master over people even. So that's megalomania. And we've seen it. We even had another case just recently with some folks that we know inside the tribe. So it happens. And it happens enough to allow us to be able to mention it, to say, listen, you don't want to go mego, though. Remember, when you activate, it feels like you are, which is a God, but that's not the end. And also beings around you have that same potential if they would activate. So you acting like you're their God is false. It's not going to help you out. But we lose more in this world of beings who could be activated because either they are complacent, or if they activated, they would be megalomaniacs, right? So that's your first part of your path, is to know how to come into the event. Now, for those who've had that event already, I would like to take some time, or just a moment, if one person wants to come forward. If you're sound, you're not going to go mego on us. If you've had an event in your life, just for others that are like, okay, so maybe I need another description of that, or maybe that doesn't make sense to me. Can you explain, what was it for you that actually made that decision for you, where you were going to begin to pursue this conscious path? Okay, so also you're going to need to have your actual video, if you're going to come forward, because other than that, then everybody else is just going to be talking to a screen. And so you're clarified, or to a picture. So you're clarified with the question. What I'm asking is for you personally in your life, because some maybe done ayahuasca or whatever. What was that point, and what happened to you that you were like, okay, this is now time for me to get on board? So I'm going to tune in right here to our sister Pluto. Give me one quick second here, because she raised her hand. I'm not sure if I didn't say raise your hand, so she already had contacted it. So let's see real quick. Let me give her a spotlight. And Wholeness Sister, let me get your line so that you can actually unmute it. 1 second. All right, greetings, because this is Tri Vibes. Today is, as we do our dialogues, what's up? So you're here to tell us, like, what was it? What was that transformation? What was that event? Wholeness, sister.
Well, wholeness. Thank you for letting me speak. So, well, it started for me in 2016, and I'm sorry if my voice gets shaky, but this is a crazy story. So it started for me in 2016. I was working at a pharmaceutical company. I was traveling all over the world. I thought I was living a good life. Like, I grew up in the projects. So I was like, okay, I made it. I thought I was doing really good. I woke up one day and I had some motivational thing playing on YouTube. And it seemed like the man was talking to me. Like, every time I would ask a question in my head, he would answer it. So I'm like, wait a minute, I know I'm not tripping. So I had this voice that said, you're going to quit your job. And I'm thinking, okay, maybe I am going crazy. I go to work. And some things led to me having to quit my job. I go home and now I'm like crazy. I'm tripping out. Like, how am I going to take care of my family? I didn't quit my job. Like, what am I doing? The voice came back, told me to go to this rental car place, rent a car, and drive to this location in Georgia. Keep in mind, this has never, ever happened to me before. So I'm like 2 steps away from checking myself in. I didn't have any money, but I listened to the voice and I went to the rental car place. I get there, the lady gives me the keys and she says, you don't have to pay until you come back. So I said, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna follow my instinct. I get in the car, hop on the highway. Now the voice is leading me to Atlanta, Georgia. And they said, okay, now I need you to go get a witness because nobody's gonna believe this story. So I go to my friend Ja's house, who happens to be a Muslim at the time. He was asleep. I wake him up. I said, hey, some voice is telling me to drive to Georgia and for you to ride with me and be a witness. Do you want to go? He didn't ask any questions. He was like, all right, just got up, washed his face, got in the car. We drove all the way to Georgia. No lie. I get there, it was a church. I get to the church and I'm thinking I'm gonna have this coming to God moment, like the pastor's gonna stop preaching and be like, you, God said it's you. None of that happened. So I get there and, I'm praying and all this stuff. This lady comes out of nowhere and she says, excuse me, this is gonna sound really weird, but God told me to give you this. And I said, how would God tell you to give me anything? You don't even know me. She said, ma'am, I was running late for church. I came in and it was an empty seat. I sat in the seat and there was a card in the seat. And God told me to write what I tell you to write in the card and give her the card. I didn't open up the card until I got back in the car. It was the money for the rental car in the car. And from the time it took me, I was living in Richmond, Virginia at the moment. From the time it took me to drive from Richmond to Atlanta, I was writing everything that happened to me because I was like, no one would ever believe this. And my life was changed from that moment on. I document everything, Seven, even from when I sneeze. Why do I sneeze? It's affecting something that I can't see. It's bigger than an allergy. It's bigger than what I see. And I want to know how those actions affect me and how my actions affect that. Along this journey, I met me and I fell in love with me. I didn't even know I existed. I found you in 2019. And like I said, keep in mind, I've been writing everything. I found you in 2019. You started coming up in my dreams a lot. And when I saw one of the Ascent series, I think The Return of the Jed was on YouTube. 7, I had written things in my notebook all the way back to 2016 that I could not describe. And you put it into perspective for me. And when I tell you, the name Ascent was perfect. It was perfect. I even had a note that I wrote to myself in 2016 that says, just listen, because I love the Ascent process. I call myself a time traveler because I know we're all connected through these different points. And like you said, we leave seeds for each other. So I thank you. I give honoring to you. I give honoring to every being that's on this Zoom right now to hear my story. I'm so thankful for all of us right now. And that's it. That's my piece. Thank you, Wholeness.
Thank you so much, sister. Wow, that was amazing because you know what? Even earlier one today, I was like, well, I'm going to step out there and trust because, it could get to be a crazy story. We'd be on here for 30 minutes and just, in a thriller. But man, this is a perfect example of how when you're experiencing, it doesn't have to be like from the outside, somebody could say, well, that how much I mean, give me more. Well, who was in the sky, blah, blah. But from the inside, when you're experiencing something like that, it has such a powerful catalytic force to take your life into another spectrum. So I really want that to be something that everyone sees here today, is that sometimes you're thinking, what kind of event can I call? Should I just go out here in the jungle somewhere and take 50,000 mushrooms or whatever? But never realizing that sometimes the real things that we need in life to make us feel who we are is that voice coming from another side to guide us into something that we don't expect. And then that's enough to confirm to us. And many of us have had this happen from time to time in our lives. Like there's constant synchronicities. But when we're able to take that synchronicity and say, this is the actual sign of that I am cared for, that I am cherished, that I am something that someone cares for that's beyond all of this, that's the driving force. So I wanted to say thank you so much, sister, for coming into the space and sharing that. And I'm sure that everyone that was here really enjoyed that. And moving through this, I wanted to also just move into that next thing, because, you know, these are the components. Like if you're saying you're out there tonight, you're like, okay, well, I'm looking for what in my life is going to be that driving component to make change for me. You can know when these events take place, and that you could see that others have had those experiences. And then you can also see that, but that experience alone, it can't be forgotten. It needs to be carried on. And that kind of brings me to the next thing that I'm calling the aesthetic itself. So this means that first, after the event happens, it's so important to reinforce your event with an aesthetic. And I want to also give a definition of what I'm defining aesthetic as. And this is actually straight out of the dictionary. It says a set of principles organizing and guiding the work. Okay. A set of principles organizing and guiding the work. So now if you could think about your soul as being the process of this great work that you're performing on yourself, there does need to be a set of principles there that you're allowing this maintenance to continue to take place. Right. And as the style of today's build, we want to talk about kind of what prevents the aesthetic even after the event. So even after it's like having a wild dream and waking up and being so grateful that that dream was not real. And then now, because you're given this second chance, you're going to make some changes in your life. Has anybody ever had a dream like that where it was just so devastatingly real? And then you happen to wake back up in real life and none of that happened. And you're like, it's so strong though. You're like, you know what? I'm going to make this change in my life. Right. But then a day or two later, after the dream juice wears off, you're back to doing the crazy thing again. There could be many things like this that happen in life. It's important for us to realize this nature exists within us, that something could happen, car accident, whatever. And then from that point on, you're like, if I live through this, or if I rebound from this, I'm forever not going to do X, right? But then a few months later, you're back to doing it again. So this is why the aesthetic is very important. Because the aesthetic, it gives you the set of principles for organizing and guiding your work, as I stated. And what this could be, well, obviously the first thing that will prevent that is just all out laziness. This is a full service reality. Doubt it not. You know what full service is? That's when you pull up to the gas tank and they pump the gas for you. So you're in a full service reality. So this is where they always talk about how hell wasn't designed to not be pleasing. You know, people have this idea that hell is like this place and they're tormenting you. That's not what hell really was. Hell was a place that you will forget. You will forget about everything. You will forget that you even exist. You will forget you had a soul. You will forget you had an allotment. You will forget that you used to live on high. You will forget about all of that in hell. And you will forget about that because it would be like full service. You'd be distracted so much. It's a program or a TV or a movie or a TV dinner or, you know, something, some popcorn. Let's go do this. Let's go to the mall. Let's go. Wow, there's the show tonight. Let's go with them. Let's go. And there would be just so much distraction. You will wake up 1,000 years later and realize that, you know, you still been here. So the main thing that prevents the aesthetic is this continuous pattern where one doesn't want to get out the house or move around or do anything, right? So most specifically, just still staying in the pattern, even though the event has happened. Get the aesthetic. And what that means is also, if we think about examples of that aesthetic, because I want to call on my brother Dominic, because I think he's got I know he's got a really powerful aesthetic that maybe he hasn't even categorized as that, because when I holler at him, he's like, yeah, you know, I went, and I'm not going to say it now because he's going to tell you, I went to this place and, you know, I do this and I hang out and connect and build. And, you know, this allows him to have this space where he's making transformations. But I wanted to name a few others here before I call him in. And that one is, obviously, yoga is a powerful aesthetic. Even a dietary aesthetic, like even the vegetarianism does become an aesthetic for people who are just jumping in, and they're taking way more time and attention with their food. They're preparing their food. It is a little bit more difficult to go through the process. Now you also have to get your supplements right. So these are aesthetics because it's something that it's setting some principles for organizing and guiding the work that you're performing on your soul. You're not just expecting, okay, now I had the event, because this is why I wanted to make sure we bring this up, because sometimes when you have the event, because you're always teetering mego, you go into, I'm the chosen one. It happens. You're like, I'm chosen. And then you imagine that there's nothing more that you need to do in order to keep accelerating into your next catalyst. True, the event that's happened is great, but as a part of human nature and time, it starts to boil off. So if we're not able to kind of cause another catalyst again, which I call the springing forth, then what has a tendency to happen is that we get to that next octave, but then we get stuck there. And it's like the aesthetic is what allows you to keep gradually increasing into that next octave of what you're to be. So that way you don't get complacent. So you're basically would be falling back down the ladder. So also public service is a very powerful aesthetic. It's not something generally that someone has to do, but they volunteer to do it. Like our brother Life, you know, he's working with the inner city youth and the children. He's been doing that for 30 years. That's a real aesthetic. He's got to constantly be catering and giving a certain level of attention. And you see what I mean? And I got another brother, he does the, the homeless shelters, right? So he goes and volunteers on the weekends. So I'm going to call my brother Dominic in real quick, because he's got a powerful aesthetic that I really dig. Because I just want everybody to know that it's not always this, you know, you got to go off to this mountain and you got to do this and this. And, you know, you have to cross your hands behind your back and be able to, it's not always that. There's other things for you uniquely that actually allow you to set a principle of organizing and guiding the work that you're doing to graduate your soul to a greater stage. So let me do this. Let me bring my brother in real quick here. Boom. Okay. Let me set these lines so that we can unmute.
Wholeness. I think you unmuted me.
Yeah. There you are.
Yeah. So I'll say food.
Got you in here.
My relationship with eating. So the first week in the Ayurvedic course, we didn't have to change anything we ate. We changed how we ate, being present with the meal, how much we chew, things like that. Now, the more mindful I chew, it's putting less stress on the body. Food also is, what's it really doing? I remember my niece was sitting here years ago and I asked her, why do you eat? Which was really me asking myself that question. So now it's, what's really the fuel source? If I could go out and play volleyball for 8 hours with just She Legit, Hydrolux water, perfect aminos, that was it. And breath. Breath has been the major key, because I remember you brought it forward in the build, is how many conscious breaths are you taking each day? The breath brings you present into the moment. It allows you to regenerate yourself. My biggest downfall as a young child was my mind was I shared this story with you on Costa Rica. The breath brings you back to the present moment. And then I'd say that the biggest key of aesthetic connection. If you can't talk to people, the whole straitjacket thing. If you can't be compatible, when I'm in the park, if I can't talk to anybody, I don't necessarily park in the nucleus. I find my space, I do my orbit, and just being able to relate to everybody. It's key.
And that's what I was saying is a very powerful aesthetic right there, is that you go out at least every other day, if not every day, and you make connections with people who you don't know. And you feel through the space and getting them aware of on what terms that, they have this gift to receive, right? And because and then also this allows you personally to walk through in action everything that you're learning, which I think is very powerful because it takes it out of a context of being in a book or a recording. Maybe I'm talking or whatever, and it puts it directly into action for you to be able to see, does this really work, or is life really like this or not? Is that, and then also volleyball. So I want you to speak into that just a little bit.
I jumped into university. I actually jumped into mentorship 2 years ago and some change. She's seen the thing full on. The life has completely changed, but it's in the action. I'll share this and then clear the space or open up the space that whenever I would read books, when it got to the point that it asked you to actually do an exercise, it's like that book will find itself going off to the side. and that's it. You got to put it into action. The proof is in the pudding. That's been coming to me since a young age. So, because if you're not proving it to yourself, it'd be the difference between believing something. I believe, and knowing. Today, we got a volleyball stuck all the way up in the tree. Everyone left except me and Liz, who owned the volleyball. And she's like, man, I think if I go home and I don't have that ball, my mom. She's like, but we could go home. I said, no, you just told me your mom. Like, we got it. And this magical, it wasn't a rock. It was something that came from a tree, and it was and we got it out the tree, so just trust the process and the gnosis. To really know it is being unmovable in it. So I give thanks.
Give thanks.
Yeah, it's what you do with it. Is what you do with it.
Absolutely. And that's what I'm saying about, like, when you show up for yourself, you're going to get the best out of this. So sometimes it's like our minds get caught up in thinking, how is this going to be displayed to everybody else? And all we're dialing in today is about, but remember, like, if you can feel it though, and it's working for you though, this is the one who's going to benefit from it the most. And it sounds so basic. It sounds so simple, but it's only until you get in one of them crazy heated arguments where you totally realize that you cannot control this other person and you're going nuts about not having that control, where a thought like, well, wait a minute though, I have this internal thing that I can really control everything in there. It should feel like to you, like a homecoming to yourself. Like a dawning of a moment where you just get to the ultimate aha. I can't control what these folks are doing in this crazy external reality, because that's the whole struggle, is to try to control that. But inside though, when I said also that, hey, these are just the preliminaries, what we're talking about, the event, the aesthetics, these are the things that you naturally want to bring the consciousness through. It's that part where you just realize, and this is what this part of the Bhagavad that we were reading, this entire, I think it was verse 25 all the way through, was really hinting to, is that some people, they would take, again, the ghee and they throw it all in the fire, and they got the flowers and they got all these different things, while you could get a devotee that will come in with nothing and know that everything that they're offering is really themselves, and be able to reach that great attainment just from knowing that it doesn't matter how much ghee we dump on this fire. It doesn't matter how many flowers that we actually bring. The ultimate thing that you can give is actually yourself, to throw yourself into it. And I feel like, you know, what Dominic is experiencing on a daily basis is, you know, it's sometimes, you know, imagine that point, especially for some of us, where it's difficult to approach somebody else that you don't know, right? You either wait, you're even trying to wait for a signal, even if they're giving you the signal like, yo, you know how somebody look at you like they would like to really talk to you or get to know you, and you just kind of turn away. Here's another powerful thing to realize in all this too, where a lot of these stigmas come from. We think as males and females, as this whole indoctrination continues, that the only use we have for each other as male and females is if whether we like each other or not on this sexual level. You see what I mean? It's like, okay, are we gonna hook up? We're gonna be together. And it's like, what that has a tendency to do is it tends to at least eliminate 50% of the rest of the population right away. So it's like, if you're already, let's say, in a relationship, now all the women in the world are off limits, because in your mind, the only thing that women are really for is to see if they're going to become your lover or not. And because you already have a lover, you see what I mean? So this is a very, very preliminary, premature state of consciousness that only believes that the use of people is to whether or not they're going to be their girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. When you escape that, you realize that whether it's a man or whether it's a woman, somebody will have something, that same thing that we call our uniqueness. They'll have something that could be very instrumental, or will be very instrumental to your growth and to your connection with them. But if it's all about like all of that other stuff that the program has got up, you won't even say anything to the person. You'd be like, man, they ain't even on my level, or, you know, shoot, she ain't gonna like me. Or you go into this conversation and remember, none of that is really going on. And that's where the complacency is. It's like, you may sit there or you may stand there and be thinking all of this, and all of this is going on in your mind, but nothing is really going on in the reality. So that's what this benefit of being who we are, because we not only can conceive like the gods or the supreme, we can also manifest like the supreme. So we can not only just think about ideas and things we want to do, we can also go out and do them. And that's the real power. And where you see how this works in the juxtaposition, because in one aspect of things, you want to have the mind of a supreme being. You want to be able to construct things in your consciousness and to go into your subconscious and to create a space there. And the challenge at times here, and this is why this is a sacred marriage between flesh and spirit, is that there's to oscillate this, to get this to oscillate, there's another thing that's being required of you that sometimes is almost the opposite energy to what it is that you expect to be getting you into the best and the most optimal state, right? Because some will say, as I've experienced, being off by yourself and having time to tune in and to connect is very instrumental to the growth of self, right? We all know this. But we have to admit that somebody who does that for too long, though, starts to become strange in many ways, where they lack the connection that we give to each other as being. So it's like they don't get updated. That's the easiest way I can explain it. It's like a silent update that goes on between all of us about humanity, connection, the essence of who we are that turns on another channel of who you are as you're getting older, etc. So you have to be able to breathe in and breathe out. The pattern is already there. You have to be able to know, okay, this is me again. I'm complacent. I need to get out there, or I'm out too much. Now, every night this weekend, I need to, load and get myself into the center again. You see what I mean? So that's why it's a practice. That's why it's something that you continue to do. It organizes. You see what I mean? This is an organism. As we balance is, you don't see anything just still balanced. It has to keep moving. The world has a moon. So there's always a new moon. There's always a full moon. So because of the tides and the movement of this, we constantly have to readjust. And when you notice with balance, when you're already in the center, to maintain balance, it's just a slight, even some of the smallest muscles do that. Just like when you're standing up and you're walking, it's the smallest muscles that are actually keeping you straight and without falling over. So it's a slight adjustment. It's not like an extreme adjustment, but to get to the center is that's the big key here. So I want to take a moment. We're going to actually refresh. We have one final part of this build that we have going on today. But before we do that, I'm going to take the opportunity, because again, this is Tribe Vibes, and Tribe Vibes is on Esoteric Radio. So this is a special day. We trust we can do this at least twice a month. It's just coming in with Tribe and also bringing our two families together. And that's YouTube, Facebook, and then also the ambassadors. Also, if you're seeing us here today, you're on one of these stations, they hit the like button, something, or I think they say when you do that over there, it allows others to be able to see this. This truly assists us in continuously getting this message out. Also, if you're out there and you're feeling like, oh, it's a little cold, I want to be in there with Tribe, the link's in the description, jump in. It's definitely something that is it's priceless. This is the connection that we share in these times. These are somewhat strange times. So having beings around you that vibrate and connect the same way that you do, it's key. And so think about yourself tonight. And if you want to go ahead and join into that, we're going to take a quick moment. I want to start this giveaway, because I did say we're going to do a giveaway. I'm doing that with the ambassadors here today. And so that, again, is more incentive for those that are on the other side, jumping ambassador training. Today, this is actually something that it's interesting because, we have some very powerful elements. And this one right here, it's kind of like when it came in at a time where there were so many other things that we were doing. I never really had an opportunity to say to everybody, hey, listen, we've actually been able to achieve being able to get bathtubs up to a high level of ppm and hydrogen. So obviously, we have Hydrolux. Some new Hydrolux should be back in stock in a week and a half, by the way, because those things have been flying off the shelf. There's an issue kind of around the world right now with supplies. So because we need certain membranes and things like that, they're like, yeah, we got a shipment coming, but it is taking us a little bit more time to get things prepared. But this particular product here, I've been using, especially after I go through some extensive yoga. And I also use it in conjunction with magnesium salts inside of the bath. And what it is this is molecular hydrogen bath powder. It is the only one in the world. It does come in this, and this is what we're going to be giving away today. There are actually 10 powder sachets inside of here. And what it will do is it will take the bathtub of about 40 gallons and it'll bring it up to around 1,200 parts per million. No, parts per billion. So there's another way to get hydrogen in your body. So how you can participate in this tonight, Tribe, if you want to jump into this, is we're going to leave this for 2 minutes. That if you want to be entered into this drawing for this, just type your name inside of the chat. And then what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to type them in, and I have like a random name picker. And we're just going to take a quick moment. Also, for those that are out there, this will be a good time for you to take a moment to get some water and to, just refresh yourself while I go ahead and put these names in, and then see who is going to walk away with this hydrogen bath powder today. And then we have one more half of this. We want to get into a little bit of this third step, which we're calling uniqueness. And that will conclude what we're doing for this evening, because, sometimes these conversations could be like 20, 30 hours. And there are some that have been asking, hey, could you keep that a little bit more concise? So let's go ahead and do this. And if you wanted to take some time, clear yourself out, this would be a good time to do that. I'm gonna go ahead and throw some music on real quick here, and I'm gonna go ahead and get some of these names in. Wholeness. All right. All right. So I trust that everyone had the opportunity to refresh themselves. All right. So it looks like that music is off. And all right, so we're going to go ahead and do our drawing here this evening. And let's see. So let me put this on the screen so everybody can see. This actually was a really good way for me to actually see who was in attendance, because I did type these out as they were coming in. And I, personally, for me to know every single person that is here is really something that I set out to do. And so meaning all the members of the tribe, I know many of you, I've seen you flow through the space, and I honor you. So I wanted to say thank you so much, but this was just a point for me. I was like, you know what? If I do this every time, I'll at least know who was all in attendance, or at least enough of who was in attendance. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this. Let me, I'm sure you can see my share screen over there. So I think how this works, but how this works is you put all the names in here. Let me copy and paste those so it doesn't goof off on me. And then I think we hit something down here, and it picks a name for us. So let me find that. And they got so much advertising there. Do they actually think people buy stuff when it's this much stuff on the page? It's like, come on, man. Like, I don't even know where the thing is you want me to push. So I think it is this. This says shuffle the names. So let's see if that's it. Okay, no, that shuffles the names. Okay. And let me see. Show random names. Pick one winner. Yes, that's what I'm trying to do. Oh, there it is. Dang, you see that? They just struggling over here. Okay, who's it gonna be? Woo! All right, my man, Jonathan. Woo! Man, you're the next contestant, man. You got the showcase showdown happening in this thing. So that's what it is. Our brother Jonathan, he jumps in today with the win. Let me go ahead and get my camera back together. So obviously you can contact us on the bottom right-hand side of the site, and hit us up with your address, and we'll get that out to you. And then when you come back in about 3 or 4 Sundays, we're going to ask, or Fridays, we want to ask you, how did it feel to get soaked up in some massive levels of hydrogen? Because, man, when them bubbles start going all over the tub, I started to do a commercial. I was like, man, because, I'm not like a marketing genius or anything. I've been wondering, like, how can I put a little bit more time around our products and things? And I was like, man, maybe I should just get in the tub, have that thing smoking, the incense and everything going, and the camera there, not naked though, you know what I mean? And then just show how the hydrogen is bubbling in the water, you know what I mean? Something like that, maybe. You think that'll work? So let's keep it going. And what we want to get into now is that, so we talked about the event, and then we talked about the aesthetic. And we should be very clear why these two are necessary. So the event is that initial jolt. It's like, okay, I'm out of this frequency, but you got to keep going. So you need that aesthetic so you could, make some progress happen. And then the next thing is, now you need to basically make a career of it. And long story short, this needs to be your life. If you're spending 8 hours or 9 hours a day doing something else that's not really you, this is going to affect things. So you do need to now center into actually figuring out the uniqueness part of you. This is the procedure. You may get shocked at first, but nobody's expecting you to know everything. You may receive some wisdom, but there's still things to learn. There's still going to be, there's going to be ropes to things that you're going to need to know. And so you got to go long haul into that. And the best way to do that is to do it in something that automatically resonates with who you are in the first place. So I wanted to show just very briefly, because again, you're not a clone. And here's another thing. We're so self-conscious. It's easier for us to wear the thing that we know everybody is going to accept. I got a closet full of t-shirts of a certain color. Like, I don't know if y'all ever seen that movie, The Fly. It's an old movie, but they went in Buddy's closet and he had all of the same suit in the closet. And the lady was like, I knew you had the same suit, but I didn't know you had several of the same suit. And he said, oh yeah, I save so much time. It eliminates a lot of my time by just, because I'm at least, I don't have to spend time trying to figure out what I'm going to wear. However, it's important at this point to realize that without a custom, which is a costume, it's your character inside of this matrix. Think about that. You would be missing an opportunity for the energy in which you emit to be received without you even saying anything. There's an opportunity that you have when you take time with your custom or your costume or what you're wearing. They call this your clothes because this can close your energy. What you wear can open and close your energy. It could define you. See, some people struggle with this because they would love to argue anyway. So they would like, no, your clothes don't define you. It doesn't matter who you are, blah, blah. And this is the same person being there, emoed out, depressed, don't know what to do, don't have no solutions, ain't built nothing, ain't created nothing. And it's just like, because there are pieces to all of this. And we have to sit back for one moment if we're going to really teach. And we're going to have to, what are those pieces? And one of the things about even in the Toltec dreaming, why do you wear a mask? Why do they have you wear a mask? So that way, when you're wearing a mask and you walk by this mirror and you look in the mirror and you expect to see yourself, you see the mask. And then it takes you out of this idea of just yourself, because it's much more easier to see. And then when you go in the dream world, you start seeing yourself with the mask, because it's like you've got complacent within yourself. You're so used to seeing yourself. You walk by the mirror, you recognize the person, right? So what happens is that in your custom, though, your custom is designed for you to be able to, when you do see the reflection or project the reflection of yourself, that it actually emits the vibration and the frequency in which you want to emit. So it's a huge opportunity. It's not always, hey, let me look well, let me get all into this, I need this Chanel bag, blah, blah, blah. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about taking a moment to troll Etsy and actually decide on a new style or a new variant of who one is, because this sometimes, and in many cases, can be the catalyst to you not walking down the street wondering what people think about how you look. If there's something that you've liked, but you've always felt self-conscious about wearing it, you may even find yourself wearing it, and then right before you get to where you need to go, you take it off. Like, I'm just going here without it. Let me take this off. You know, I don't want to stick out. When, again, this is the perfect opportunity for the vibrations to come into harmony with who you truly are, versus now you need to do some more. You need to do some more explaining. You got to do some more emitting when you could have done that already with your custom. So you're not a clone. Dress different, talk different, be different. Get out of the pigeonholes, because that's not you. And it starts again with when you get something you like, you know what, let me play with it a little bit. Because remember, a wardrobe is huge. Like some already have the talent, they could take anything. It's not only about how much money you have. You can go into the thrift store and come out $40 later looking like, man, you just stepped out of the 1940s on them. And they're like, yo, this dude is sharp. Like, what's going on? Like, you see what I mean? But whatever is for you, though, like what you like to do. You may go steampunk on them and just be like, this is where I'm at right now with this. This is me. This is the era of time that I feel that I want to resonate with right now. I want to admit, give something to me. You're going to go through this whole world. You're going to go through this whole life dressed like these clones, especially the ones with the suits on and all that kind of stuff, when you could have had the opportunity to look at these African tribes. You see the different levels of the costume that they work with? They do that because that costume says so many things. So use that opportunity for yourself to get out of the mode, right? This is a part of your uniqueness. Now, we talked about how we encourage uniqueness, and I wanted to make sure that, because sometimes, we've been in this for years now. So when we introduce some amazing stuff, because we're always doing that, we kind of introduce it and we move on to the next thing, because it's, I'm not really fond of continuously talking about what we've done already. But I do realize that at times there's new people coming in. And if I haven't talked about it in like 4 or 5 months, then none of those new people really know about it. And they could just be floating around out there, not realizing that there's already amazing things that are available for them right now. So I wanted to make sure that everybody knows that inside of Ambassador Training, inside of the website. So this just requires that you sign up for Secret Energy. you get put into these flows of Enealogy and they deploy to you automatically right into the chat that is inside of the site. So you'll get an email when there's a new message. And the reason why these actionables are important is we spent years, and let me just throw this up on the screen real quick. We spent years really putting together flows, we call them. And what flows are their step-by-step processes that a person would need to go through on a daily basis to get more familiar with who they are. So if you're on the site also and your flows are not triggering or whatever, you can hit us up in support and we'll see what's up. Generally, it's just because you haven't been to your chat box yet inside of the site, because it'll be there and you just need to continue. But on a rare occasion, maybe some flows didn't trigger for people who have been in the platform for a long time, but it's just letting you know this is here because it's not the same flow for everybody. So what we're looking at is we're looking at a 6, which is the Allegiant, which of course is Venus. And this is taking you behind the scenes. This is letting you see, this is the type of, if you want to say this is, I want to say this is coding. But this is like when I have to spend time and I have to enter in these actionables, this is where I put them in at, right? So this is the software that I use. And this allows me to deploy it then on your side into your chat box. And this is just one path. Now, when you come into Secret Energy, you get phase 1 and phase 2 for free, right? And this is just phase 1. As it says up here, this is the Allegiant phase 1. And I just want to show you basically how we've already put together that process of starting from, I want to say from scratch, like we're just going to dumb it down, but from scratch in a level that we need to make sure that you didn't miss something. Because you could be up here, you know, on 7 degrees, 8 degrees in the ascent, riding high with Supreme Self with a tube of fluoride toothpaste in the bathroom. And we could be over here just imagining that because you're on ascent 7 degrees that you know not to be putting fluoride toothpaste in your mouth, but it just could have, you know, that just wasn't something you were privy to. We take a lot of things for granted. So we sat down and we thought about like, so when you were going through the process, we did this based on our own journeys. When you were going through the process, just like we're doing tonight, what were the things that you really needed to do in order to really start maintaining the vehicle? Let's not just assume you know everything. And so as we scroll through this, there's obviously, this is like a conversation happening here. It's very conversational. But the things that it's getting into as I scroll in here, remember, every one of these little cells you're seeing is a form or a part of the conversation. And now that next part of the whole build has started here. And you're seeing this kind of directly under me. Let me just move me over here real quick. And you're seeing what this specific phase is, what's being offered is the awareness of what this energy is about. And as you know, okay, so let me just rewind here really quick because somebody's like, okay, so where is this coming from? Did you invent it? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. It turns out why people, you know, have been sleeping, that a lot of the knowledge here about occultism specifically comes from an angel or a planet, in this case, called Shukra. Okay, and this planet or this angel or this energy of Shukra was basically the one who took the knowledge from on high, if you may, or the heavenly knowledge and brought it to man. So this is also Prometheus, who's also Venus, who's also even Lucifer, and all the rest of the terms that they put around all of this, the light bringer and all this. But what it's about is taking the knowledge of how the heavens work and bringing it to the earth. So that's why they said that, oh, wow, this angel taught men and women the sacred arts of heaven, right? And then they go on to cursing man and woman from there. But it's very simple that there's a knowledge about how time moves. And that's why Venus traces out a concave pentagram in the sky over a series of time. And that time has also a lot to do with a specific shape. That shape has to do with the geometry called phi. And we find that things that are on the planet have a tendency to be created within that set of geometry. Just as you would see a sand dollar, just as you would see a flower with 5 petals, that there's a specific geometry, and that geometry is seen to be very godlike, okay? So when they start breaking down that knowledge, that became astrology. So the people who were teaching, the beings that were teaching this knowledge were teaching this knowledge in what you would call the ancient Orient. You would call it Persia in those times, or even before then. You call them now the Hindus. They had already been passing this knowledge on continuously. Who knows who the original being was that came and brought it? They say Venus was the original being that brought it. But after that point, it was passed throughout the ages through gurus that had this knowledge through symbolism, geometry, and certain levels of knowledge about how a person's temperament would be if they're born under certain astrological signs. And why many have been like trying to authenticate if astrology is or astronomy is real or not and how it works, it's very simple that the conception point of when you come into play, which is actually when your parents come together, it opens up a vacuum in itself in what you would call space, and a certain amount or a certain type of dust, depending on what's going on in that moment. That's why it says that man is from the dust. But they're not talking about the dust like the dust in your house. They're talking about the periodic table. The periodic table is the dust. So when the vacuum opens up at that particular moment, when you're coming into conception, it sucks in that cosmic dust or those elements in that increment, because, you know, every day there's a different increment. The periodic table is what's really moving. Like there could be more mercury, there could be more of more ruthenium, more cobalt, and those variants is what creates the differences within us. But that moment when the vacuum is open is when it sucks in all of that, and that becomes your composition. And so through that, there became this knowledge of seeing, well, if a person had this kind of composition, their temperament is going to be like this. They're going to be more adverse to this. And they just went, as they say, went ham on it. They just start writing out all of these correspondences because they were able to then line up how human beings connect into what's going on in the world. Okay. So there's no need to reinvent the wheel. What we did was then say, okay, well, how can we modernize this knowledge? Also, you'll notice that Cornelius Agrippa, who was clearly one of the most enigmatic occultists of his time, wrote in 3 volumes of books trying to do this exact thing, which was trying to find correspondences within all of nature's elements. I don't think his work was anywhere near as refined as this work, but then this work for sure predates his work. So in conclusion, this is where this knowledge is actually coming from. And what we've done is we've bought a mixture of the knowledge, even in relation to your diet. So this is going to start going through what you need to be eating and what could be a bit more trouble for you. Because like if you got hot temperament, right, and you find yourself chewing on peppers all the time and eating eggplants, it literally means that you're doing exactly what creates the most chaos for you. There is a way for you to even program your attitude with what you're eating. Now that you're on the cucumbers and things, you're a lot less agitated. You see what I mean? So it's those kind of things that give you the ability to have self-mastery, right? So we give you even access to some of the works to get you more familiar with the system. We talk about how to clear your space because, you know, you got folks running in and out of your house with their shoes on, dogs and stuff hanging all around, and all this stuff has energy. This energy is just basically like barnacles. You can't look at this energy like, oh my goodness, it's evil and it's not supposed to be there. It's about the wavelength. And if you haven't been moving around a lot in your space, and then there's been an accumulation mainly in the corners. When you turn on the light, all the darkness goes into the corner. If you could watch what you call darkness, where it actually goes when lights come on is it goes into an angle or a corner. So generally, like in the corners of your house, this will be like if there's any energies in a space or in a room that are stagnant, that's where they are. So when you take Palo Santo and sage and you go corner to corner on your house at least one time and leave no room for escape, even the bathroom or the closet, you can completely clear a space. But some people, they don't know about that, or they don't think it works or whatever. So this takes you through that process of like, look, this is how you can fortify your space. And again, some may know about that already, but we don't want to leave any stone unturned. We start giving you some instruction and some links to go ahead and get right into your aesthetic or burning up this fat. You know what I mean? Starting to get your oxygenation happening, because as we talk here, your oxygenation, and you may not be able to read this text, but the oxygenation is a key to the portion of implosion that you need to cause. So again, this entire workflow, and I'm still going here, I'm still scrolling through this, is really also unique to this path. And it's going to go right in. It's going to give you power elements. It's going to let you know what kind of works for you and what you need to be having around you as far as crystals are concerned. And it's going to explain to you again about things like the electrochemical balance. Like, all crystals are made of a series of minerals. When we're trying to get certain things into our body to break through, you know, because your body is very protected. It has different membranes that don't allow certain things to pass through down to the cellular level. But the light from crystals and the elements from crystals are capable of doing that because they have the electrochemical composition. So just like if you go and Google amethyst right now and you go to the Wikipedia entry, you'll see that amethyst actually consists of a whole range of what you would say is minerals or chemicals. And that's what's giving it the color. That's what's doing, et cetera, et cetera. And then having that around your body, if you are configured to actually be able to be replenished by those kind of energies or essences, gives you what we call your power stone. So these are the things that, again, thousands of years of work here. This is not somebody just coming in and saying, hey, I think it's like this. These are sages who had already tuned themselves into a level of being able to know, just like in Ayurveda, what you eat and where it goes. So again, that goes all the way up to phase 2. So there's another section of this, and this deploys over, I think it's 3 months. Yeah. And again, that's free for you on the site. And the other thing is here is, so that's one of the ways that we're doing, we're bringing more of awareness to uniqueness. Now, there's also a process here because there's a reason why we're doing this. I want to let everybody understand, because the context of today's build was really about creating more ultra humans, creating more superheroes, etc., creating more activated beings, whatever term you, avatars, whatever term you want to give it today. But it is a very real thing. And I feel like that I would just only can lead by example. Me coming in here every day for the last 11 years, working to get others to expand themselves, is superhero type stuff, whether we see it that way or not. Right? So we're talking about something that is very achievable, and that if others begin to do it, it does make it a very massive impact. If you can say that I've made an impact on your life, and there's others that can say that that's just off of this motivation to keep going and doing what I can see in the design of even nature, is probably what we would want to do for each other. So if I come across some knowledge or some awareness or some wisdom, something that's beneficial, something that's going to boost you, I'm going to try to give that to you as fast as possible, as concise as possible. I'm going to try to put it on a gold platter if I can. I'm not going to make it tough for you. I'm not going to make it inaccessible for you. I'm going to bring it right there, because I know that if we can all start getting into doing this, it's easy for us to turn the tides on all this going on in the experience right now. But I also know that I got to keep doing it, because so far in the experience, it is degrading itself a bit more. So I'm still seeing that it hasn't gotten to certain ones. It needs to be reformulated in a certain way. We need to make others aware that are in other spaces, like one of these kids that play all these video games all the time. Get Shroud or somebody awake so he can start encouraging these other thousands of kids that are following him to actually start tuning into more of themselves. We're on the cusp of it happening anyway, if you realize what's going on in social media. Social media has been trying to pretend to be organic for so long, when really it's pretty much just AI and marketers back there. But they know things that we are desiring to have, and so they start incorporating those things now more than ever to still try to make us feel like that they are conscious and that they are, that, you know, that they're organic, etc. And one of those new things is that they begin to remove likes. Some already have that build. Some can toggle it on and off right now, but Facebook and Instagram, which is the same company, is now going through the process of phasing out likes, because they realize just how damaging the damage is done. But they're not realizing how much damage. They knew how much damage was going to happen anyway, because they have the psychological analysis before they even start the whole thing, right? But now, because they're coming under so much fire from the product of all of those likes and how a person feels when they don't get the likes. They don't want to now be seen as the ones that are still perpetuating this, this lack of consciousness. So they're removing the likes. So now you just get to see and liked by others, right? So they can keep going on with the fictitiousness. However, what I wanted to mention is that obviously what we've developed is completely organic, and there's a purpose, there's a process that we're going through here. And that ultimate process is for you to be able to do what you do as your uniqueness as the same way, or at least a very strong way, that you're supporting yourself. So we say, a person goes through this process because you may see at a certain point, it's like, wow, I want to be an ambassador training, but it's $79 a month. Now that's an investment. But before that, in sovereignty mentorship, which is free, or the ambassador training, the first semesters that get you in the right kind of mindset to understand why your abundance is blocked. Also the affiliation, which we let you just be able to represent what is here. And we do that in a very sound way, a way that doesn't demoralize or degrade even your own offerings. It can work alongside of it. So we give you basically the tools that are necessary to, if you run into anything that's like a wall, that you can surmount that wall. Because a lot of times, if everything is just given to a person, and I learned this, man, and it was wild to go through the lesson, but that's a part of maturity. If you just give everyone everything, it has no value. It's just like, they will go and find the thing that they need to spend some energy on so that they can feel it, because there's a transfer happening there. Because that's another part of our character. We want to feel like, well, what am I contributing? And somebody said, well, I'm contributing my money every month to my own growth. I'm working on my own self-substantiation. That works out for that kind of being. Does it help us? Absolutely. Because it allows us to keep going on with what we're doing. Some people say, well, how do I help you? Help yourself. Join the mentorship, and you can call it like a Patreon. You're paying $79 a month, but you get all of this. You see what I mean? So we're creating more value, but we're also considering, but if we gave it all away, because on YouTube, it's crunk on YouTube, it's there for free. But if we just give all that away, then the person's give all the way on the path, give it all away, the person won't go on the path. So you see how you have to really be in there going through the process. Like, well, why is this not jumping? It's because they don't think it has any value. But what is the process? The process is, now that you see that you've created value with it, you go through the lessons. And so let's look at this, because we're about to deploy this. We're right on the cusp. How do we vision it? Because we keep simplifying and perfecting the vision. And what we visualize is journeys, because not everybody wants to go on the same trip at the same time to the same place. That's not how we're created. So we're at different legs of the journey. So to somebody else, afterlife is the big key for them. They're like, look, I'm 60, son. I've already done everything that you're talking about. I just need to understand my afterlife information. Then you got another person, they just, that's like the original core members of the resistance. They're just all in the spirits and entities at this, it's like, look, I just need to know who's who, what's what. And so it's the realization, and that's our continuous enhancement, that different beings are on different parts of the journey. Some want to work with love, manifestation, activation, the money situation, energetics. So we create those specific paths. The person goes on that path, the seeker or the co-creator, as we call them, they go on the path. And when they complete the path, they become certified in that. And because they've gone through that process, what this is doing is, it's not saying this is how you need to be. It's giving you the whole gamut of everything that you could be. So that way you can develop your unique character more. And then when you develop your unique character, what we're beta testing right now, which is actually going exceptionally well, is ultimately you become a soul coach. If you want to keep going, because you find that, and it was something our brother Eddie said, and it stuck with me forever. There's Eddie right there. This was years ago, and we were still on semester 2 of, semester 2 or semester 1 of the university, which has almost been like 6 years ago. And Eddie said, man, after I finished university, and I think actually we're on semester 2. So after I finished university, semester 2, I felt like that the only thing I could really do after that is really create a career out of consciousness. It's like once you get to a certain level of awareness, doing other things in life doesn't sometimes call you anymore. And you feel like, man, I need to kind of metamorphosize my entire career here. But what can offer me that? And so we threw ourselves into that task. That's the kind of stuff we do over here at Secret Energy. We're just like, you know what? Let's see how we can make this work. Let's take some of this intelligence and figure out how to make it work. So what we've created is an entire ecosystem. You come in, if you got nothing, we got to start off with nothing, zero. If it starts off with some money, it's not an ecosystem. Like we start off, let's see if we can find sovereignty mentorship here. There we go. I think this is here. You know, we're starting off at zero, but there's a process that we're deploying here. And this process has everything to do with you come in, you get into yourself. You got all the support that you need. You got other beings that are around you ready to make this happen. And any kind of extra pointers that you may need on the process, they're there. Give me 1 second. I just wanted to find this page real quick. I think it's when I go here. Actually, let me see. No. The URL to this is, yeah, there it is. There it is. Okay. So again, the process here is this is a university, this is the interversity as we call it, but this is an entire curriculum. It's an entire process, this enlightenment. It doesn't happen like overnight, unfortunately. And because of that, we have to also be very mindful about what is that process. That's why we create things like genealogy to take a person from scratch. Also from scratch is from zero. Yo, I don't got any money. I'm leaking. I've kind of depleted all my funds. But also the person that said, well, you know, I figured the whole money thing out a long time ago, but, you know, just give me the deluxe and let me go through that process. And this will, of course, now that we've opened up Sovereignty Mentorship Pro, allow someone to have a personal soul coach assigned to them. But what this process is to take someone from specialist to soul coach, by first taking them through the procedure of giving them the proper level of mentorship and education. And then from that level, then getting them unlocked into their uniqueness. And then once they've unlocked their uniqueness and they've gone through the right kind of courses, as we've talked about here, they can kind of figure out, well, this is more of what I do, right? And then what a soul coach is that they do what they do. This is not just someone saying, hey, I represent genealogy and what genealogy says. They use genealogy, but each of these soul coaches has a different background. Like our brother Tim, he writes books. You've seen Dominic tonight. I talked about my brother Eddie. And the reason why I say we're beta testing this is because we've put this into play and it's working out very well. And then now when we open this thing up, we're just going to see more of our ambassadors become soul coaches and then start mentoring the people who are coming in at zero. So this is what we're doing with the platform now is we are creating the process through our new LMS, which is the learner management system, as you see here, to where there are groups that you come into and then you get started on your process and your flow. And I trust that makes sense. Maybe that was a long version of explaining to everyone how we are really going at this aspect of unlocking this uniqueness, that we're not just saying it, you need to unlock your uniqueness. We're saying to you, this is the process of understanding what that is. Yeah. So our final thing here is that also, you know, the platform has a very powerful geolocation inside of the platform. So you're able to actually see others that are in your area. This is extremely important. If you've been over there and you feel like, man, I'm isolated, you know, I really, really need to find some folks. You know, you've been hitting up Tinder or whatever, and it's just like you're not finding that conscious connection over there. Just come into the site, hit to the main page. Let me just jump over here and just check it out for a minute. See who's in your area. So this is like my build. I'm here in Costa Rica, obviously. Our brother Soul is close. Our sister Lotus, Melissa, Helios, Alyssa, our brother Johnny. So these are those that are in Costa Rica. This is 12 miles away that are inside a tribe. I can shoot him a message and be like, hey, let's link up. And what you'll find is, because like the tribe is the filter already. So you're going to have a higher probability of finding someone that you really vibe with and connect with on something like this, because it's already gone through that first initial filter. Like, you know, are we on that same vibe? I mean, because if somebody has come into the platform, more than likely they are familiar with this stage, this level of consciousness, and they've started doing work on themselves. And it's most important for us, though, to keep encouraging each other to go on this work. We can be so to carry on with this work in ourselves, because we can be so instrumental to each other with just a little bit of encouragement. Like when someone says, hey, you know, I find a person over here, like everybody on the line that I see, I always marvel when I see somebody that just doesn't look like anybody else. And it's just like, man, we really are covering an entire spectrum here. And we're also doing that in a way where we're all seeing how we connect versus what our separation is, or, you know, what we don't agree with. And then in that, again, so coming into the platform, it's not even about, hey, stay on this all day and do this all day. It's about, hey, go link up with somebody in your area and experience what tribe is really about. Because that's my contribution to this, is I keep sending out this message and I'm attracting people to this message. But really the most important part is those who are in this space, those that are a part of the tribe, becoming attracted to each other and actually doing things together and creating with each other. So we create the components to do that. I also want to let anyone know, and someone can copy this link, I think, over into Telegram if you're a moderator, that there is also a secret energy chat. We do have a chat in a group inside of Geneva. Obviously, ambassadors have their own chat, but also just for Secret Energy, there is a chat. And as a member, you do get the link, but I want to make sure that I drop it here. If somebody wants to drop it in YouTube, that would be awesome. And that's just to let everybody know, if you're out there, you're still on the fringes, you haven't decided to join yet, maybe there's some things that you need to get through. There's still tribe members that are there and available and communicating, and you can tie into the Geneva chat. There's materials for you there. I've estranged some things. So that's what we do. Okay. That's what we do. We create the transformation, and then we perfect that transformation. And we know that at some point very soon here, you're going to see way more people aware of this, but it's okay for us if only we're aware of it, meaning that we're not like in shambles because it hasn't reached the entire world, because we're more interested in when it does reach the entire world, what process is everybody going to go through? Are we done yet? Have we finished creating all of the paths and the journeys and the potential of those journeys? Have we finished aligning all of our technologies so they work, that they're debugged, and that they actually function and they're functional? You see what I mean? So there's things that we're doing over here. And so we're on both ends, and we trust that by the time that, you know, we get to the point of being able to receive hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people into what we're doing, will be the perfect time when we have already ironed out the process and the ability to be able to do that. But right now, there's already something going on and it's happening. So this is what it is, tribe. It's 9:20 on this side in Costa Rica. I just wanted to let everybody know, especially that's out there and also that's in here, that, man, you're extremely cherished and you're loved. This is the time that you defeat the villain program and you realize that, man, you have a miraculous change to make on this world. And I don't doubt at all that there's some beings that are on this line that will, just as we are driving around in cars now and you got different inventions that came from certain people, whatever, it's the same thing with you. You could easily bring in one of these massive creations and begin to actually change the way that we exist. And I know that happens when we empower each other. So I just wanted to say, Wholeness and Balance Vibrations tribe, I'm going to give this time and this opportunity, unmute the line so we can hear that grand crescendo. We got always something happening, so stay tuned for the schedule for next week. And in between that time, remember your process. The event, the aesthetic, uniqueness, right? And then your community, you got that. Your community is here. Jump online, link up with some folks, make it happen. If you're ready to start a career, start going through the process, because our next design, which we want to deploy in 2 weeks, is going to allow us to see you. Your interaction, answering questions, being there, it gives us a certain level of visibility, and we're like, yo, they're on it. All we want to do is empower you. So when I design systems that have a transparency to allow me to be able to see who needs that they're ready. It's like, do you need this? Do you need that? That's what this is about. It's about, like I said, you look into life and you realize that sometimes it's better to give than receive. So I'm a giver. I like to have the ability to give. I don't like to be sitting back waiting on receiving something, because there's been times where nobody has come. So I decided to juxtapose my role in life and to give, and to use this intelligence and be like, look, let's use this intelligence, because I see a lot of stuff going on, but I'm not going to let that be my narrative. I'm not going to get sucked into the vacuum of villains and lockdowns and disease and all that stuff. And I'm leaving the planet. Like that's what my thing is. And then even worse, in the dream world, I remember in the beginning of the whole thing, in the dream world, I had folks that I was worrying if they had the virus in the dream world. And I was like, well, time out. How is the virus in the dream world? This cannot happen. So remember, taking control of you, getting back on the throne of yourself, has every single thing to do with you being the Lord and master of your own life. So come into yourself. You're welcome. Inside, you'll find everything. Wholeness.
Wholeness.
Wholeness. We love you.
Wholeness.
Wholeness. I love you, everyone.
Thank you.
Wholeness.
Wholeness.
Wholeness, tribe. Wholeness.
Wholeness.
Balance. Balance.
Let's try
Much love.
That's what I'm talking about.
Wholeness tribe. Love you guys.
Wholeness.
Shucks love.
Wholeness.
Tribe.
Wholeness. Giving thanks. So much love.
We have officially
Love.
burn out.